Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Pull the Crown. Today we have a very exciting episode. I'm going to be pestering Julien with a bunch of questions about the do's, don'ts, and disasters of watch maintenance.
Pester away, Chris.
For now, I want to cover the news. I want to talk about all the releases that I've been seeing coming out in the last week.
Let's do it. I've not seen them yet. So
you have not seen anything?
I've not, and you've come kind of cold turkey into this. So
I'm starting with a banger. Hey, I'm Chris, and I spend way too much money on watches.
Hey, I'm Julien. I know way too much about watches.
And you're watching Pull the Crown.
The place for off-the-cuff watch content.
Have you seen that? The new Tudor Black Bay 54 Lagoon Blue.
Well, I have seen it just because it was on the screen before we started talking, and immediately, yes. I've seen it on the market actually
It's
already
gorgeous.
too. Yeah, it's
What do you mean
awesome.
on the market? What?
Yeah, the one actually came up for sale already, or maybe two.
It's already released?
Yeah, it's like these are the post sort of Watches and Wonders releases, so a lot of them come to the market pretty quick.
Did not realize that.
Yeah, over retail, obviously, the first ones.
How much? Do you remember?
I think it was for like 7,000 or 8,000 US, something like that.
That's actually less than I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, it's not crazy, right?
But anyways, going back to the watch, it's freaking beautiful, man. What
Gorgeous.
a watch. I love it. So first things first, the dial.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Love that light blue. Normally something that's reserved for like a platinum watch. That seems to be like the signature now.
Definitely.
I love everything about it, down to the Jubilee-esque bracelet.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I'm uncertain about is actually the bezel. I like the bezel a lot in that picture, but by certain angles, you realize that it's kind of polished like a mirror finish. And that's throwing me off a little bit. Again, it works in this sort of like render photo, but when you start seeing photos of it actually on the wrist, then I start getting a little bit confused about it.
I might be shooting off base here, but it kind of reminds me of, I think it was called the Tudor Hydronaut or something like that.
Hydronaut? No.
Something like that. I might be shooting off base, but there was a model that was produced in the 2010s by Tudor that was pretty similar bezel-wise. But I agree with you.
Inspiration from that. Can we see some other photos, guys?
I'd agree with you though. That bracelet, it's killer. The size is awesome. The 54 is a really cool size.
Yeah, what, 37 millimeter? Like,
yeah, honestly, it's for me. You throw the new.
Yeah, you start seeing the mirror. But there you go.
Okay, right. Yeah.
So, but there it kind of looks brushed actually, but it's not. I know it's polished.
It's a new dial variation, a new bezel variation on a popular watch.
What is that?
It's cool.
What is that dial called?
Probably
it kind of has that texture.
I mean, probably glacial.
Glacial?
Yeah, glacial dial. I'd probably call it. I mean, well, the actual the texture itself.
All this to say,
it's almost like a
nice
sandblessed texture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's a very nice watch. I liked it enough that I started reconsidering that order I put in for the Tiffany Tudor.
Yeah. What else do you have for me here?
The next watch actually is pretty cool. It's a watch from MAEN, the Mean Man.
Mean Man?
That thing.
Okay. So it's very much...
They re-released the 37 because this is a watch that they already do, but now in an ultra thin. So they've slimmed down the case and they added that sub-dial for the second hand.
Interesting. Yeah. So the small seconds.
Small seconds. I like the small seconds because I like that it's shaped similarly to the actual watch case.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like the dials that they have for it as well. If you guys want to scroll down, we can see that.
Similar texture to the Tudor from before.
Similar texture, but I actually don't like this texture. It kind of looks like it's interesting, but not necessarily in a good way. Like I have strongly mixed feelings.
It kind of reminds me of some stuff that Omega does actually in terms of the dark side of the moon, where they have that sort of moon texture. They call it.
But then they're at least hearkening to the moon. This is just... It looks a little too rough for me.
I don't know. I don't hate it.
Like I don't know. Kind of looks like unfinished
I feel like,
cement.
Our era in watch releases is really like a texture era where watchmakers have just been producing.
Sorry, can you guys scroll up a minute? I want to just see how thin they actually got the watch.
Not
9.3. Oh, from 9.3 to 7.1.
That's
Nice.
pretty good.
That's pretty impressive.
Well, it's a manual. It's a ETA standard. The 7001 is a long time movement, right? Great movement though. Powerhouse, like easy to service.
Beautiful watch. Beautiful watch.
Yeah. I'd actually...
Would you rock that?
Have to see it on wrist. Whenever you get these weird case shapes, especially in sizing, I mean, it's a smaller watch, bracelet feel, these sorts of things. I mean, the bracelet already, it's kind of looking like it could be uncomfortable to just, first kind of look at it. I'd have to see it in person, honestly.
All in all, nice watch though.
It's cool.
Like really nice watch.
For €1,000?
Yeah.
Pretty cool
They're
watch.
putting out some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Timex released another watch. Yeah, a 1975 Enigma reissue.
I don't even know the original.
Neither do I. But it's a funky looking watch. It's pretty cool, actually. I think it's slightly more expensive than I want it to be for what it is. And I'm not sure how I feel about that blue dot in the middle. Not sure the purpose of it.
That's pretty interesting, though. It looks like it's, I mean, it looks like a planet kind of orbit, you know? It's a bit interesting.
Oh my God, is that what they were going for?
I mean, that's what I get from it. It looks like the sun is orbiting around Earth as it does normally. What? I like the loom. I mean, the loom's pretty cool. It's just red.
Yeah.
Unless that's not loom. No, it's not.
It's definitely interesting, actually. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, you know what? It is always cool.
For effort. I like that they're putting out
cool to
like
see
new stuff.
Yeah, it's cool to see something that's not a overblown style. I mean, the bracelet's pretty interesting too. It's a stretch bracelet. Yeah. It's a definite callback to the. Oh, there you go, a little foreshadowing. 1975. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. It's a pretty cool watch. What else you got for me, Chris?
The Type XX chronograph.
Okay, this is something I've seen now. This is cool.
That's pretty nice, right?
I
have to admit, I really like it.
Yeah.
It's freaking gorgeous.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth $55,000, but it's freaking gorgeous.
Well, you know what? I'd probably reason to say that it is just because it's Breguet. Obviously this is a callback to the 1950s, the original Type X. Was it a Type X or Type XX back in the day?
I'm pretty sure they probably kept the same name. It's probably a Type X.
Most likely. That watch was designed for the French military way back when. Very, very competent watch. I mean, it was a sportier watch for Breguet, who's obviously, I mean, you think Breguet, you do not think like a sporty kind of chronograph, even though this walks the line. But look, you've got bold features here. You've got strong photina and loom going on. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Love the crown. Love the lugs.
Love the crown. Love the movement. Just the
thin
scroll
bezel,
down.
super nice.
Yeah,
I'm really not a big fan of the subdials being like different sizes. I don't know why that shit always throws me off on watches, but all in all, man, nice looking watch.
Yeah, look at that.
That's a cool one.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And last but not least, Girard-Perregaux has a new dial on their Laureato. I don't even know how to fucking pronounce
Girard-Perregaux has a new dial is groundbreaking, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, it's news.
It is technically. I mean, look,
and I do like it. I mean, to their credit, I really do like it.
The Laureato,
the indices look different too. Actually, I don't know if they're like that normally, and I'm just not familiar enough.
It looks pretty normal to me. The Laureato, they've produced so many dial variations though that it's really hard to impress me. It's a kind of strange.
You not find that impressive though? It is pretty cool.
It's fine. I mean, it's fine. It's just
scroll
not
down, guys. Let's
enough.
get him a close up on it. See if we can change his mind. Come on, that's pretty nice.
Infinity gray. Okay, so does the spacing change as it gets kind of like towards the sides, or is that just my perception of it?
I think it might be your
Looks
perception.
like the lines close in, the distance between each line, maybe. But, that doesn't really do it for me. I mean, it's unique. It's something cool, I suppose.
Maybe part of a larger discussion at another time, but I'd be curious to figure out how you feel about GPs in general. I
actually love them. I mean, they're... specifically on the gray market, man, those are good value for money watches. If you paid retail for this watch, you're taking a bath. It's 50% off basically. Right. So I would never.
Could the same thing be said about that Breguet that we were just looking at? How's the depreciation on those?
Not quite 50%. Generally,
not quite. Okay, so still bad.
Yeah, of course. But all Breguet. I mean, look, new releases always trade closer, but even like a new release from brands like GP or. Breguet, if it's not COVID times, they sell for still 10-15% off list.
This is the problem with all of these watches. Anyways,
it's a problem.
That's enough of the news. I want to pick your brain, bro.
Okay.
I want to add, because last week you chewed me out for making the joke about putting olive oil in a watch.
Yeah, it didn't sound like a joke. I think that was the part that.
Well, it was a joke.
Okay,
there was some truth in the sense that I'm very genuinely curious what the difference is in a watch oil versus any other type of oil.
Yeah,
but it got me thinking. It genuinely got me thinking about, hey, what are some do's and don'ts and some disasters to watch maintenance, right? Like, I think I know a thing or two through experience about how to maintain my watch, where to take it for service, stuff like that. But I've compiled a list of questions. I'm going to ask you them so that our audience can learn alongside me on how you should properly take care of your watch.
Awesome. Fire
Sounds
away.
Good? Okay. Let's start with an easy one.
Okay.
how do you change and where do you change the battery on your quartz watch? Because see, this is kind of like a twofold question. It's easy if you have a watch like mine that I'm wearing right now, because it's a Timex and you flip it over, you'll see that you could literally open it up with a nickel, right? And then just see what battery is inside and change it yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? So very self-explanatory. But when you get to, let's say, like a watch like a Seiko, that you actually have to open up the case, right? Or a more high-end watch like a Grand Seiko, is that the kind of thing that you should be dabbling by yourself? Or should you be taking it somewhere?
So, okay. So, that's two different questions, of course, but I'll start with Seiko. It depends on what, okay, here's the first consideration. Does it have a sapphire case back? Okay. The actual very first consideration is how the heck do you get this thing open in the first place, right? Like, you need to judge the case back. Some are screw down. Some have actual like locking mechanisms where there's a specific tool. Some have like a very specific octagonal kind of case design where you need a complete brand specific tool.
Yeah, but now I'm talking like generic, like I own a Tissot or a Seiko. It's
Let's
a quartz
imagine
movement.
that it's
I feel like I should be competent enough to change the battery myself or take it to the mall and get the battery changed.
Yeah.
So what would be your go-to response? And like somebody's asking you, hey, my battery is dead on my watch. What would you advise them to do?
So again, you need to look at the watch. Why did I say if it has a sapphire case back? Now, if you're OCD and you want to look at the back of your Seiko and you don't want to see scratches all around the battery housing, then don't do it yourself. Learn on a cheaper watch how to do it correctly, right? And the other important thing about battery changes is you got to have good tools. You got to have the right tools for the job. And it's a learning process, right? You can't just jump into it on a more expensive watch,
No. But again, like
risk what you're willing to lose in terms of aesthetics of the movie. But for the most part, battery changes are easy. You can do them yourself. Okay, for the vast majority of people, there's no difference.
For the $15 it's going to cost at the mall.
Why there's no qualification that, say, a jewelry store owner at a mall has in terms of changing batteries except experience, right? Over you. There's nothing that they have except that they've changed probably hundreds of thousands.
So like if I bought this $22 kit, would I be competent enough with this brain to change the battery on a Seiko?
I'd say so, without a doubt. Now, Grand Seiko, different story, because now you're going to have screw housings and you're going to have different components that you need to watch out for properly. But it's still something that you can learn if you're that interested in it. If not, generally speaking, the mall's a fine place, not for Grand Seiko. If you really don't even want to risk the scratches and the learning curve that it takes to do it, then bring it to a watchmaker. He'll charge you $10, $20, whatever it is, all in with the battery. You get a kit like this. The batteries, by the way, you can get yourself as well, right? I think we have another Amazon link. There we go. So these are Swiss batteries, right? So Renata is a Swiss company. They've been manufacturing quartz batteries for a really long time, quartz watch batteries. Look, you can do it, so it depends and it's cheaper.
So if you have a Seiko, a Tissot, lower end quartz watch every day sort of thing, it's worth trying it yourself.
If you have a sapphire case back Grand Seiko that has finishing on its movement,
do you have to change the seal? Is there a seal on that? Or you literally just twist it open, change the battery, call it a day?
Depends the watch. Depends the watch. It really depends the architecture of the movement and all that. But to answer your question, you could do it yourself for the lower end watches, but best to leave it not to the malls, not to anyone except the watchmaker for anything that's a high end quartz movement. That would be my answer for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
What else you got for me?
Question number 2.
Yeah.
How often do you service a watch? Now, this is a trick question because the instinct in me is to literally just read the manual. Right. And now, obviously, I'm referring to an automatic watch. Read the manual. It tells you service interval and just stick to the service interval. But I have a feeling, distinct impression that you're going to tell me it depends. And it's going to depend on how often you wear the watch, the condition the watch is in, how you store the watch, and all of that shit. Am I right?
What's your next question?
What do you mean?
You just answered it.
Did I?
No. Almost. Completely.
Almost.
Yeah. Reading the manual is a good place to start. Now, the problem is that you have to realize that most brands make a huge portion of their annual revenue off the servicing of watches, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like a car dealer. They make the vast majority of their money maintaining your car, not selling
Maybe
your
not
car.
in the case of watch brands, but they make a ton of money, like a substantial sum off servicing, right? And this is even, this is exponentially higher. The value that they produce off of servicing costs is higher for the higher end watches. It goes exponentially higher, right? Because like you bring in, you send in a Rolex, okay, out of warranty for service. It's going to run you about $700-800 US to fully service the watch and get it done, and around there, depending on parts replacement costs and that. If you go to RM and you need a full service, if the watch is like a 300,000 list RM that has some complication, they're going to charge you $40,000 for a full service with parts.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be ridiculous.
Listen, if you could afford a Richard Mille, you don't need our fucking petty advice on YouTube on how to service your watch and how often to service it, right? I'm really asking for fucking the Joe Blows of the world like me that own like some decent watches and some cheapy watches. Yeah. How often should we be maintaining these things, and where should we take
So you did answer part of it, right? So use case is important. The manual is the starting ground, but the brands have an incentive to want you to service it more often than it needs to. The realistic answer is it's a good idea to make sure that all of your watch's functions are working properly, and check that by just using the watch on a day-to-day basis. It's a good idea that once a month you try and run through the date wheel, you try and run past midnight and make sure that it's changing at the correct spot it's supposed to. Yeah. If it's not, there could be something wrong with the jumper. There could be some parts in the watch which are damaged that could need some form of service.
A good indicator on whether or not your watch needs servicing if you just like notice you're losing seconds, like noticeable to you, like you're looking at the time at the end of the month and you've been wearing it for a month straight and you're off by a few minutes?
Yeah, so in a month, again, depending on the watch,
you should be losing what, plus or minus 5-6 seconds a day.
Yeah, so look, but I really wouldn't suggest you look at timekeeping when you're trying to evaluate if you're going to service a watch, okay? Because you could always just get the watch regulated. If the amplitude is high enough on the watch, then you don't, and beat error and basically seconds gained or lost in a day, right? Yeah. Actual timekeeping. That is indicative of the balance, okay, and how you basically regulate the balance, right? So you're basically twisting screws and turning things around. Beat error has to
So it's more of an adjustment than it is an actual maintenance.
It's an adjustment instead of an actual maintenance, taking it apart into all of its individual parts, cleaning and replacing parts. Like the most common thing in service, right, is that any two pieces that touch or have any sort of movement whatsoever generate friction. How do you limit the friction on a watch is you lubricate it with oil. The same thing as a car.
Yeah.
What happens over time is the oils tend to dry out, right? So Swiss oils, the difference that you asked for between, let's say, olive oil and a Swiss, gear train oil or a really high-end specific oil for watchmaking, the difference is in viscosity, chemical properties, that the oil will stay maintained on the watch. It'll keep it lubricated for a longer period of time.
It'll adhere to the watch pieces.
And actually stay there. Okay, exactly. So it won't dry out as quick.
Right.
And it serves
I would assume too that it's going to depend on use case. Like if you're diving with your watch regularly, you probably want to like maintain it more often to make sure all the seals and stuff are good, right?
Yeah, for waterproofness, yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, look, that's a different story altogether, right? Checking if a watch is waterproofed or not is different than if it needs a service, okay? Seals can be compromised at any time. It does happen.
Okay, interesting. I was kind of roping it all together.
Improper service can also lead to the improper reinstallation of seals, which is one of the most common things that reasons why watches get flooded is an improper service, right? The improper seals. Okay. But to answer your question, it depends on the watch. Generally speaking, it's a good idea for any serious collector to get a timographer. Make sure that amplitudes for most movements are above 260 or right around it.
Wait, what? Back up. What the fuck did you just say?
A timographer.
You think people should have timeographers?
I think if you're a serious collector with a big enough collection and you care that much,
you're fucking out to lunch, dude. You're out. I gotta stop.
It's like $150 and it'll save you so much. It
sounds more reasonable when you say it only costs $150 bucks.
It's not.
But I feel like I would feel like a fucking tool, bro, if I had one of those at home and I just like put my watch on. How's my watch doing?
Well, that's one way of thinking about it.
There's no fucking way. Hold on. Wait. How many of your clients have what do you call it, a timographer?
Okay, I'd say maybe 10%.
Okay.
But I'll tell you something, that 10% don't have to, basically waste time by wondering if their watch is in proper
My birthday's
order.
in October. I'll take one of these typography thingies. Okay, so next question.
Yeah.
Where do you take your watch to be maintained.
Yeah.
Go-to answer is just take it to the AD.
Yeah.
Right? That's like the go-to response. I'm just going to, you have a Breitling, send it to Breitling, do your thing. Done that.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you advise that? Or would you be like, no, find like a watchmaker. It's just not worth it.
I would advise it if you're under warranty. I'd advise you go to the AD, okay? Because it's not going to cost you anything. So
Fair.
yes, in that case.
But that's not a maintenance thing. Because you could have a watch under warranty, you're still going to pay the maintenance, right? It's more like if your watch breaks.
Yeah. Right. Well, but services are also included so long as, and each watch is different, right? Every brand is different. But for Rolex, for example, they do not cover water damage. Even if it's totally the manufacturer's fault, they don't cover it. They don't cover certain things, right? Cosmetic damage.
But again, that has nothing to do with the maintenance.
No, but it might, because they also might factor in shock. Here's the problem, though. Sometimes there's actual issues from the watch out the factory that go unnoticed for some time. Mm-hmm. For example, I had a client who had, I think it was like a Pepsi, right? He bought it brand new out of the AD, and within 2 months, it was going crazy. Basically, it was losing tons of time. Operations were not working as they were supposed to. Just it was kind of a disaster of a watch.
Okay.
What they do at Rolex is they evaluate it just as you would a car under warranty. They check for damage. They check for any signs of what could have caused what happened. And in that process of evaluating it, they determined that it was not shock. So there was no deep, basically spots on the bumps on the case or anything that could be attributed to a violent shock to the watch. They realized that it's a manufacturer issue. So they fully covered it and they serviced it free of charge.
I understand.
Right? So that's where it becomes interesting. Now,
okay. So basically, general rule of thumb, your watch is under warranty. It's probably a safe bet to service it at the AD.
Try it.
By the way, you never know. You never know what they're going to find. It's under warranty. They might do something for you.
Even if you know that it was totally your fault, you hit it against the wall and it started going bananas, bring it in and try it. It's worth it.
But even just like general maintenance?
General maintenance is
under warranty.
Under warranty, 100%. You want to abuse your warranty as much as you can because it's short.
Okay.
Now, as soon as your watch gets out of warranty or as soon as Rolex tells you, I'm sorry, it's not covered, but we'll service it for you for X amount of dollars. At that point, go to a watchmaker. Okay. At that point, go to a competent watchmaker because the chances are that a competent, independent, basically watch repair shop that specializes in watches, not a jewelry shop, they're going to be better equipped to service your modern watches more than anyone else.
No, that makes sense.
They just have a higher level of training.
On my Breitling Aerospace, actually, the battery went out. Okay. Yeah. And I this was obviously prior to me asking you these questions, so I didn't know what to do with it. I'm just like, I'm going to send it to Breitling and swap the battery. And so I took it to the Breitling in the mall. They called me back after a couple of days. Okay, we heard back from Breitling Canada. The price is going to be, I think it was like $900 to change the battery. And I was like, guys, it doesn't make sense that you're quoting me. They're like, yeah, but we're going to polish the watch. We're going to change the seals. I'm like, I haven't worn the watch since the last time I took it to you for a full service with a full polish. I'm like, there's nothing to do on the watch other than to change the battery. So they're like, well, listen, that's what it is. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I refuse. So I'm like, can you just change the battery? Don't change your seals, don't polish it, just literally open it, change the battery. They come back like, yeah, we could do it for $80. So I was like if I wouldn't have asked that question, I would have just paid $900 for fun, right? And I'm sure I could have got that battery swap for even less than the $80 that they were changing me,
Easily. So it's a game, right? Like, like I said before, that's where they make a lot of their money.
So follow-up question. Mm-hmm. Where do you go about finding a watchmaker? Because I don't have a watchmaker.
Yeah, so that's a good point, right? So, and that's why I specified before that you need to make sure that it's someone who knows what they're doing, somebody who's been in the industry for a while. Finding a watchmaker is not easy, okay? It's a much harder thing because it's a very specialized industry to begin with. And a lot of the best watchmakers end up working for the big brands, whereas, starting out on your own in any business is obviously more difficult than joining a team, right? So for the most part, the really good watchmakers don't have their own shops. The ones that do are passionate, okay? So for the most part, most watchmakers who specialize in high-end watches are going to be pretty competent. But the best way to go about it, if you have local forums in your city, local groups or any sort of chat rooms or anything for watch collectors, ask around there.
That's smart.
Google is not the spot for it because Google, you can pay SEOs and you can get your marketing.
Yeah, you're right. You'll end up with the jewelry store that has a watchmaker in the back that the guy knows a thing or two.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But the best thing is that and word of mouth, or ask your neighborhood watch dealer. Okay, like that's a common question. I always tell them, you go to Zach here in Montreal. That's the best watchmaker here and probably in all of Canada.
Right.
Okay, he's here in Montreal with us. So that's a simple answer.
So a little bit of research required,
Definitely.
but a worthwhile exercise because you're going to save a lot of money and you'll probably get a better service than the generic one you'll get at your AD.
I can speak to Zach's ability. I've sent watches to our RSC. I've sent watches to other ADs. The quality of the workmanship that's done by my watchmaker here far surpasses the head of Rolex Service Center here in Montreal, right? Far surpasses it. It's not even close.
It's a bold statement.
It's not even close. The part where it gets interesting is parts. That's where it actually gets kind of unique and interesting.
Is obtaining parts?
Obtaining parts. It's a difficult thing. Yeah.
It's a difficult thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, that actually coincides with my next question, which is where do you go and find replacement parts? I wasn't thinking actual watch parts. I was thinking like you have a busted up bracelet or clasp.
Yeah.
Like, can you just source that yourself?
Yeah, so definitely. So I'll basically answer both those questions. Watch parts, bracelets, and such, they tend to, for brands like Rolex, sell above retail.
Wait, what?
Like bracelets, brand new bracelets.
Like a Rolex bracelet's more expensive secondhand than it is buying a brand new from Rolex?
Yeah. So let's say that
because you can't get one?
Because it's more difficult to get one. And the reason is simple.
They give you a hard time to buy a bracelet now too?
They do. Any alterations or parts, like bracelets wise and things like that. Yeah, they make it difficult.
Hold on. What? I'm missing a link.
Yeah.
I just bought a watch. It's too small for me.
Yeah.
Not going to happen for me, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Too small. Pick up the phone. Call your Rolex AD. Hey, I want a link.
You just bought it yourself? No problem. You just bought it from your buddy? They're going to give you a hard time.
Wow.
So that's a common thing that happens specific to Canada. I don't know if it probably does happen in the States and elsewhere, but the amount of times that
sell watch, they give you a hard time.
They give you a hard time.
Everything, man.
They bring it in. Where'd you get the watch? Oh, I bought it off a buddy of mine, or I bought it from a watch dealer. I bought it from.
Who fucking cares where you buy? I just want to buy a fucking link.
And again, and especially if it's not an AD you have a relationship with, they're going to give you a hard time for getting it. It's not easy, and there also
just
is
make the sale, man.
It's also business. It also takes time. So, but if not, if you need parts, you need bracelets and such. I actually did find, for example, a vintage bracelet just on eBay. Go on eBay, buy the seller, right? So buy a trusted seller. It was a eBay listing, guys. Yeah, there we go. So look, 100% positive feedback, over 5,000 sales. This is a guy that you know. You look at his other listings, for example, you start kind of cross-referencing them. You know that the bracelet's going to be legit. So this is a vintage bracelet. This is coming off of a watch from the 1980s. Okay, so it's not a modern part, but even at that, look at the pricing right now. $580 for a vintage bracelet that at the time would have cost $30, to get a replacement.
So I've heard that eBay has been stepping up their game when it comes to like reliability and like buying certain things online. Like I heard they're like stepping up their game with sneakers and stuff like that too. So the same thing with watches?
No, it's that system's been fooled many times before.
Has it?
Yeah, always buy the seller. Okay, that's it's plain and simple, right? You don't you don't always trust
one
the
listing,
eBay guarantee.
no reviews, no trust.
It's a no. And if not, there are parts dealers that exist out there. But the issue is that Rolex, Breitling, Omega, whatever brand you can think of, the real issue comes back to watchmakers. Now it's getting more and more difficult for them to order parts. Back in the day, it used to be that a watchmaker could call up their local AD and order parts directly from them. And I'm talking up to even 10, 15 years ago. Rolex would happily sell you parts even if just you were a local watchmaker. They would do that. Nowadays, it's not as easy. They have to go.
It's not a bad idea, though. I mean, if they're trying to get people to forcefully service with the AD, all they have to do is limit the supply of parts to the watchmaker, and all of a sudden you have all the skills in the world, but you don't have the parts you need to do the job.
And it did work in terms of equalizing the amount that a service would cost from an AD versus a watchmaker.
Right.
But again, to answer your question, eBay, buy the seller. Chrono24 also has parts listings. Local forums, again, are always a good resource. And there are parts dealers around the world, as well as watch dealer companies that carry parts as part of the supply.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So, next question. Where should you polish a watch?
Okay. very similar answer. Modern stuff, watchmakers have a tendency to do a better job than Rolex, actually. For Rolex, for example, my watchmaker here locally,
they'll do a better job than
does
the
a
AD.
better job than the Rolex service center here in Canada.
How is that possible?
How is it possible? Is that basically doing it by hand with experience and just being an artisan, because that's what a watchmaker is at the end of the day. If you're properly trained, you've gone to school, you've done enough work, enough trips. Locally, my watchmaker here has done the AP, basically watchmaking school in New York. He's traveled Europe learning from big brands, has been offered positions at brands across the world, basically. Well, Swiss brands, I should say.
Yeah.
That's sort of experience that the standard people that work at, say, Rolex Service Center Canada aren't going to have. So also the technology is different, right? For brands like Rolex, Breitling, when they go to repolish, they're not using the same machinery that they would have used in manufacturing the watch. They're going to use a more standard, basically polishing equipment, laser equipment, which has a tendency not to do as good of a job because it's basically taking out the artistry of it, I guess is the best way to say it. That's the easy answer for it. Right. But in reality, what it comes down to is experience.
Yeah.
So tendency is when I send a modern watch to Rolex for polish, it comes back pretty well rounded. The finishing's not great. There's streaks through it. At least that's my experience in Canada. Now, I've heard it's different in Europe, that service centers there are better in some parts of the States as well. But here locally, watchmaker is the only way to go if you want a proper finish on the watch, restoring the different elements. That's the way to go.
I'll kind of answer my own question. Definitely not take it then to a local jewelry store, because I feel like a jewelry store will offer polishing.
A jewelry store...
Every jewelry store will offer that.
Every jewelry... Never.
Still have the little buff wheel. They'll polish your rings and shit.
So that's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
So that in that case, it's going to be a jeweler that's polishing it as though it was a piece of jewelry, which is completely different to polishing a watch. You don't polish jewelry and watches the same way. There's a different styling involved. They're two different industries, even though they are linked under the whole
for sure. Different finishes on the same piece.
Exactly. Okay. And it's a different whole design kind of, you need to have a different design comprehension, product comprehension when it comes down to it. So 100% stay away from jewelry stores. Go to watchmakers or the AD worst case if you have to, okay? Depending where you are.
Yeah. All right. So now let's assume you have a brand new watch.
Okay.
Or you just got your watch back from polishing.
Yeah.
Is it worth putting the protective PPF style stickers? Right? Have you seen this trend? Like instead of PPF for the front bumper of your car, you can wrap your entire watch in plastic stickers if you wanted to.
Look, this is a total personal thing. There's no right or wrong answer, okay? But I will say that I've sold enough watches.
Have you seen one?
Plenty. I've sold enough watches that have come in where clients have installed the stickers, and I remove them because...
Is it very noticeable?
It is eventually, right? Because as soon as you get any kind of wear to the stickers, you start to know that you start to notice there's stickers,
right?
Okay? Like it's funny, but basically you're scratching.
Is this like
the stickers.
The equivalent of putting like plastic on your sofa?
Yeah, essentially it is. I'd say it is. Look, they're not incredibly noticeable, but they're noticeable. And the most annoying is when you have a Jubilee bracelet and you've got the stickers going on and peeling them off individually.
Can you imagine applying it to a Jubilee bracelet? Like, oh my God.
Trust me.
I would cry if I
just peeling them off, even throwing eventually you get tired, you want to throw it into an ultrasonic cleaner to get them off. Even that, it's like, it doesn't come off easy. Yeah. And you kind of have to, right? Like if a watch comes back to me, you need to remove them and before you sell it, because you need to know what the condition of the actual watch is, which you can't tell with the stickers on.
Okay.
So they need to come off anyway.
All right, fair.
I've seen enough of it.
So what about those like nano clear ads? Have you seen these?
Yeah.
Where like the every ad is the same, where they're like, oh my God, the watch falls off a cliff, and the guy's like polishing it first, and like it falls.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely seen those.
Those look sketch. Yeah. They look so sketch.
So all these like self-polishing kits, look, Nano Clear does it better than anyone, okay? Better than like Cape Cod and everything. But you're just going to ruin the finishing, okay? Because again, you're trying to take
even if
an
there
artistry.
Are better versions, I wouldn't do that, man.
Okay, it's like imagine that you're an art collector. Yeah. You collect Picassos, you collect Rembrandts, you collect all kinds of different art. Would you buy a kit to refinish and retouch up some paint peeling that's happening in a corner of your painting from a great artist? No, of course you wouldn't, because you're taking all the artistry out of it and saying, no, the end consumer can do this, which took a watchmaker 10, 15 years to learn the technique in order to do it.
Yeah.
But to think and assume that you can do the same, or at least approach it with a kit, you can't. Okay.
Right.
NanoClear does it better than everyone because it does include like a sand block essentially to get the proper finishing.
You got to stop talking.
I know, but it's better than say just the standard kind of rub
You're gonna
polish.
fucking sand your fucking watch, man.
Yeah. So
that just sounds like a disaster.
Stay away from it.
That just
Stay away
sounds
from
like a
it.
disaster.
That's where I'm going to stick to.
Yeah, let's stick to that. Don't. Yeah. You're like framing it that it's like somewhat viable.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking of it like a paint pen for a car. You know, just like a little touch up here, a little touch up there. Like
no.
Not that.
Not the same thing.
Not that. What about removing scratches on, let's say, like a plexiglass crystal?
Polywatch is your friend.
Polywatch, right?
Yeah. So plexi crystal is going to be polywatch. If it's deep enough to get your fingernail in, there's nothing you can do. You replace the crystal. It's that simple.
Huh.
Now keep in mind, for plexi, generally speaking, you're talking about, for generic sizing, anywhere from like $5 to $20 for a new plexi.
That's it?
Yeah. It's not, but if you want to go higher end with it and get like, certain designs or finishes or for example,
how well does the stuff work?
It works.
I was thinking about getting some for my moon swatch.
Yeah.
I just rub out some of the scratches. Would it work?
It would work. It will show lines. It will show streaks. It's never going to be returned to like 100% perfect.
Okay.
Even with like light scratching, but it will remove them under most lighting. Okay. Lighting rather. But honestly, you're going to scratch it up again anyway. Just wear the watch until it's unbearable. Try it if you'd like.
Yeah.
But don't expect much. And worst case, you replace it. I mean, it's nothing. Now it becomes something.
I feel more comfortable trying this because for the $8 it's going to cost you. The 5 minutes of rubbing it with a microfiber.
I've got a few of them.
And then worst case scenario, like you said, if it doesn't work out, you just change it.
Then
it's
you
not going
change
to be
it.
expensive.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
What about a sapphire crystal?
Sapphire, if you have chips, if you have a scratch in the sapphire, it's possible.
You can't polish the sapphire though.
No. But you can, but not really. Okay, not really. Because think about it, sapphire is a 9 on the Mohs hardness scale. It's one away from diamonds. It's a hard substance to polish. Yeah. And even if you do, not easy. Okay. Sometimes the scratches are only to the AR coating. Okay, and you could technically peel off
coating. Sorry.
The anti-reflective coating. So most
that's on the outside.
Could be on the outside or the inside or both, depending on the brand, okay? Sometimes it's worth it to remove the AR coating. Some people do it, for example, on the Cyclops of the watch.
Right.
It's more prone to see little buffs and scratches. You could peel it under heat. Now, you could also, in so doing, pull off the actual Cyclops, which is applied using resin. So not always easy. Huh. With sapphire, if you have a chip, if you have a crack, it needs to be replaced. There's nothing that you can do about it. If you want, say, sapphire crystals for Rolex, they're incredibly expensive. That's something where Rolex, if you want your crystal replaced, you can't just send your watch in and say, I want my crystal replaced. I'll pay just for the crystal. They're going to service your watch in Canada anyway. So I'd say...
Same idea. Find your watchmaker.
Yeah.
Swap it out.
Yeah, swap it out. And, if you're a kind of guy that's going to break crystals, go generic.
That actually brings up a question. Would you bother with like an OEM sapphire?
That's exactly what, So if you're the kind of guy that cracks his crystal and you see chips in your crystal just from daily wear, if you need it changed at some point, don't go OEM. Maybe buy an OEM, just keep it so that if ever you choose to sell the watch, if it's a higher end watch, you can swap it back in to sell it. But if you're just going to crack it again, don't spend the $600, $700 on an OEM.
$600-700?
It's ridiculous right now. The parts
Wow,
cost.
was not expecting that.
Yeah. It's ridiculous right now. So stay away from that and you'll be
okay.
good. And also learn how to wear your watch better. Is the good.
So I have a fun one for you.
Yeah,
it's a stupid one, but it's fun. How do you put your watch down on a table?
It's a great one. I usually do it like flat down, so kind of like this with the bracelet compressing on the top of it. I feel like the sapphire is the most resilient part of the watch, so putting that direct on the table is perfect.
That sounds very intelligent.
Well,
but at the same time, when you were
I'm
saying
happy it worked. The sarcasm worked.
I was going to say, when you were saying it, though, I was like, I think you might be a fucking psychopath.
Yeah. No, the best way to put it is simple. You do it on the opposite side of the crown, lying on its side. Okay.
Yeah, because I've heard people say, put it down crown side down.
No,
right?
don't put it down crown
because
side.
then it's like there's less things that are touching, less to scratch. And then I was thinking about that. I'm like, that can't be right, because then you could damage or scratch the crown, which seems like an expensive thing to change, right?
Yeah, definitely. You're just concentrating the scratches.
So to your point, what you're saying is put it down crown side up like this.
Yeah, but don't.
So basically, the only thing that you're scratching potentially is just the flat side of the case, right? Easy to polish.
But literally, the simplest thing: get a small microfiber cloth, and then you can set it down on a table as much as you want, or even a piece of paper.
So
add something in between.
That's what I do. I usually, like, if I'm taking off my watch for whatever reason, like, so let's say when I go a golf simulator or something, I'll take my watch and I'll shove my key inside of it like this, and then I'll lay it flat on my car key, so that it just kind of like sits, so I'm not touching the case back onto the clasp.
You know what though?
Right?
You do. Here's the consideration
like
for that. So technically speaking, the case back shouldn't scratch, but you're talking about an added level of surface area, because anytime that you lay your watch down flat, going down this way, you're adding the surface area of half of the bracelet touching a table, and that has a potential to scratch. The best way is to concentrate that by just having it on one point.
Right.
But again,
so that is the move. That's what I do too as well sometimes. What makes me nervous about doing this, what you're describing, is if it collapses on itself and then you're right back where you didn't want to be in the first place, right? Yeah, absolutely. So what we're describing is basically putting the watch down either crown side down like this on a table, which we don't advise because then you're going to scratch the crown. Julian's explaining that you should put it down like this so that it lays flat on a table, and your only really exposure is the flat part of the case here, which can be easily polished. And what I'm describing is if you put it down on a table like this, and then you can put something like, I usually put my car key in between. So you put my car key and then it lays flat like that, so that it doesn't really touch.
But see, the surface area is, you got
but then
half
the surface area of the bracelet is on the table.
So look, it's dependent on that. All of this could be easily fixed by buying a little microfiber or just not putting it on wood. Hard
So
plastic or
I've
anything
bypassed all of this by getting myself like a little watch pouch.
Yeah.
And it comes with exactly what you're describing, kind of like a padded little thing.
A watch stand, a watch pouch.
Yeah.
Watch roll, even a sock drawer, wrap it around a sock.
These are these are OCD options.
It's easy, but number one thing.
This is OCD.
Do not be doing
to
this.
all of this is
do not be doing
don't
this.
fucking care about your watches being scratched, and then you don't have to send it to being polished. Yeah. You don't have to worry about putting it down on a table, and you could not be a sick fuck like me and just fucking rock your watch with your scratches. Yeah. There's a lot of people that make that argument, though, that you really shouldn't give a shit about scratches on your watches. It's just every single scratch is a reminder and a story of where you've been and what you've done and the shit that you've gone through, right? And it becomes a part of you. I have a buddy who wears tags. Wore a Tag Carrera for the last 15 years, right? This watch is beat the fuck. Yeah. But it's kind of fucking cool for that. You know what I mean? Like, he wears it for everything. Cooking in his restaurant, riding his motorcycle, playing a sport. Doesn't matter. The watch is on his wrist. That's kind of cool. My brain's a little fucked up for that, but it's kind of cool. I like that. Okay.
What else do you have for me?
I got one last question for you.
Let's do it.
Would you say it's worth getting high-end tools to change or adjust your own bracelet or remove your own bracelet?
Yeah. So similar thing to the whole initial question you had about changing batteries. Start easy. Don't start expensive.
Yeah.
But
see, it's like a catch-22. When you say start easy, right? Like, I've bought these screwdriver kits back in the day, okay? Like cheap screwdriver sets. And I've tried changing links, and I've fucked up screws, and I've scratched my watch because the screws literally, like the screwdrivers will fall apart.
It's going to happen, but buy Swiss tools, buy Swiss screwdrivers.
Well, Bergeron's a fantastic brand. You're going to pay for it. Like, I have that screwdriver set right there on that little wheel.
Yeah.
It cost me like $200. Like, I still feel kind of ridiculous for it because I've used it like maybe twice to adjust the bracelet.
Well, I'll give you
like,
a quick little reason why, specifically on like modern Rolex, or even vintage Rolex in some cases, if it's seen the service center. The reason why generally screws get messed up is there's two reasons really. A, you're not picking the right screw head size for the screw.
Right.
And then B is the links are actually so tightened with Loctite and overdone with Loctite, which is like a glue.
I know what Loctite is.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. You just fucked me up now.
Yeah.
I never realized that the screws were put in with Loctite.
Yeah. So when you remove the actual screw links, the screws.
No, hold
inside the
on.
links.
You're fucking me up even more now.
Yeah.
I've resized my watches.
Yeah.
I just unscrewed the screw and put it back in. Was I supposed to put Loctite this entire time?
No. You don't have to.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to, right? That's if it loosens. But now it's kind of standard, even at ADs, whenever they resize your bracelet, they're going to apply a little touch right at the end to seal it back in. Whenever you remove a screw, you might notice that there's some white or kind of gray substance right towards the end.
That's
a lot of people think it's dust or whatever. No, it's the Loctite. It's the glue from inside the screws. Okay. They just fix them generally. The solution to that, take a blowtorch, okay, kitchen torch or some strong enough flame. And what you want to actually be doing is holding it directly to the links to soften the Loctite.
I'm so uncomfortable with that.
On the opposite side, light it up.
Yeah.
Maybe 3-4 seconds is all it takes. Okay. You don't want to discolor any of the stainless, or it's resilient enough. It'll take it for 3 to 4 seconds.
Right.
Go in with your proper screw head and you will never, ever crack a screw or damage the screw ever again.
Right.
Not strip it. It won't happen.
Okay.
Best way to do it.
It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Thanks for all that, man. Very knowledgeable.
It's my pleasure.
That. I feel like my brain is full of knowledge.
Well,
I feel prepared now
welcome to my
rip
world.
apart my Seikos and not use olive oil.
Well, look, I'm just happy that the knowledge doesn't seem so useless now. You know, that's what counts.
So I think there's something we should do to end this episode.
Okay.
I think we should do a wristwatch check.
Okay. Sure. We kind of partly did it just by demonstrating.
Well, I was just demonstrating that my watch is stretchy. All right, you can start then.
Yeah. So today, and I sent the link to you guys, I'm rocking a two-tone Rolex Sky Dweller, reference 336933. Honestly, value for money on this Rolex sells under retail.
I thought the retail was higher than that. That's pretty great.
Yeah, but so even at retail, it's an annual calendar, most complicated Rolex ever produced. Two-tone, you got gold going on. It's pretty cool. On the market, it sells under retail. These are all elements which add to a good value for money buy. Yeah. Especially when you consider it's a Rolex, right? I mean, that's what counts. But I like this watch. I've always loved Sky Dwellers are awesome, just in general.
I find it slightly taller than I want it to be. It's slightly bigger than I want it to be. It just wears big on my wrist.
Look,
but it's
big for a reason. It goes back to our Patek.
It's such a beautiful watch. And I was playing with yours the other day, and I love adjusting the bezel to adjust the moves. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Such a nice watch.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not as fantastic as the watch that's on my wrist, though.
Okay, go on then.
So I'm wearing a Timex Q collaboration with Hodinkee.
Okay.
I bought this watch 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't remember how much I paid, so I had to pull it up. $220. Okay.
Okay.
This thing looks absolutely fantastic for the price. Like absolutely gorgeous watch. Really, really cool. Like look at that. It's a fantastic looking watch. So it has what's called a pi pan dial.
Yeah.
So it kind of like steeps down near the bezel.
Vintage inspired,
right? Yeah. With the quadrants as well, like the sectors.
Yeah.
The indices are kind of like applied, because it's like applied on the end, they kind of like angle upwards, which is kind of a really cool touch. I have a unidirectional bezel. It's just pressure fit, but it feels really, really nice. Talking about servicing, this whole episode, would never have to service this, no tools. So you could actually adjust the links by yourself, literally just with pressure.
That's awesome.
So I can literally adjust it myself on the fly. Then they modified the expansion bracelet.
Yeah.
They modified the expansion bracelet so it doesn't catch your hairs anymore, right? And you can literally take off the entire bracelet or adjust it all on your own. And of course, you can even swap out the battery, like we were saying earlier,
with a nickel.
Yeah. So fantastic purchase, $220. Looks super class. Dress it up, dress it down, and like I just feel like this is one of those watches that again proves that you can literally have a super class watch at any budget.
I actually agree with you. I actually like that watch.
Right?
You know, on paper, I like that watch more than the Sky Dweller, to be honest.
I was just being a little cheeky. But
no, but just to say, like,
it's $220. Like,
if you take value into consideration, you take market, you take all this kind of stuff into consideration. Like, to me, that's a better buy on paper, right?
It's well, again, it depends the perspective and your means and all of that. But I'm just saying, like, for someone that does own a pretty decent watch collection, and I do have nicer pieces,
why not spend the $200 and get this
just
watch? That's great.
as much of an occasion when I wear this thing as I do anything else, right? So again, just to say, like, you can have an interesting watch or a nice watch collection at any budget, and I feel like that's worth noting.
100%. What a great way to end it. Such a sweet note instead of roasting people or yelling at each other. And
thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers.